For a slum kid named Sunny, contracting the incurable nightmare spell wasn't just bad luck, it was a guaranteed death sentence. He fights with every fiber of his being to stay awake, because the moment he closes his eyes, he dies. His one and only desperate gambit is reaching the police station before the spell finally snuffs out his consciousness forever. Once inside, he collapses and reveals the horrifying truth. He's infected with the lethal and incurable nightmare spell. The officer immediately triggers a code black emergency, launching into the terrifying history of this devastating worldwide plague. But a tiny fraction of the infected miraculously survived the brutal trials they were forced to endure within the nightmare. These few survivors awoke from their endless sleep to find they had gained incredible and often terrifying supernatural abilities, while the awakened became humanity's saviors. For a poor slum kid like Sunny, this was still a death sentence. Without a powerful family or any resources to his name, Sunny's chances of surviving the first nightmare were almost zero. During the quick debrief, Sunny confesses he has no family and admits he can't possibly stay awake any longer. Sunny's mission is to enter the dream realm, survive the first nightmare, and hopefully return with a new aspect. This aspect could be utterly useless or godlike in power, but first, he must somehow survive the trial itself. The officer practically begs him not to die, at least not until heavily armed support units can finally get there. But for Sunny and everyone in that room, the overwhelming exhaustion finally becomes too much for him to bear. Forcefully pulled into the spell, Sunny awakens and finds himself standing in a completely bizarre and unfamiliar frozen wasteland. Glancing up at the sky, he notices with a jolt that the moon is rocketing backward across the heavens. A horrifying realization hits him like a truck. In this realm, time itself is actually flowing rapidly in reverse. But as he turns his attention back to the landscape, what he sees next freezes him with absolute abject terror. Spread before him is an endless, apocalyptic graveyard littered with the bones and armor of countless fallen soldiers. He can only stare in horror, wondering what kind of cataclysm could have caused this scale of death and destruction. A strange, ethereal voice echoes around him, announcing that it is now time to prepare for his first trial. He stares down in disbelief, instantly realizing he's been cast in this trial as a completely helpless chained prisoner. He then sees mounted warriors mercilessly dragging a long line of other prisoners just like him across the tundra. They were often cast as powerful nobles or members of a respected warrior clan, not as bottom-tier slaves. For a kid with nothing, being thrown into this trial as a weak, powerless slave was the worst-case scenario. Although the symbols are entirely alien to him, he finds that he can somehow understand their intrinsic, hidden meaning. It displays his attributes: fated, a faint mark of divinity, and the mysterious title, Child of Shadows. Sunny grimly realizes the spell must be balancing this nightmare difficulty with the promise of an equally insane reward. His aspect description cruelly mocks him. A slave is useless, but a rare temple slave is even more pathetic. That's when Sunny recalls the old saying from back home: there are no truly useless aspects, only useless awakened. The system explains his fated attribute, means that wildly improbable events, both good and bad, are drawn to him. As the caravan marches on, Sunny's foot catches on a loose rock, and he nearly tumbles to the ground. Immediately, the slave behind him hisses a warning, asking if he has a death wish and wants to die. But the same slave who warned him scoffs, declaring that unlike the others, he fully intends on surviving this. Another slave laments that their terrible position isn't their fault. It's just the result of some monumentally bad luck. The determined, blonde-haired slave then glances over at Sunny, wondering why the silent boy seems so different from them. The older slave whispers that Sunny isn't like them, who were enslaved for debts, crimes, or simple misfortune. This is because the system reveals Sunny carries a faint, otherworldly scent of divinity, as if touched by a god. The slaves continue their hushed discussion about the strange boy as the brutal march continues through the heavy snow. That's when a mounted warrior rides up to them, and one slave quickly assures him that there is no problem. But Sunny notices the young warrior is staring at him with a peculiar expression, and he wonders why. Sunny, who is almost 17 himself, realizes that this particular warrior doesn't look much older than him at all. In an unexpected act of compassion, the warrior leans down from his horse and offers Sunny his personal water skin. But before the water can touch his lips, the sharp crack of a whip slices viciously across Sunny's back. A furious commander on a massive steed confronts the young warrior, demanding to know what he was just doing. He viciously reminds the rookie that the slaves are nothing more than property, and they are not his friends. With a cruel glare, the commander warns the young warrior to never show that kind of weakness toward slaves again. But as Sunny glares back at the commander, a cold, silent promise forms within him. He will see this man die. Everyone has a mental list of people they want gone, with family and friends sitting safely at the bottom. After this brutal, unprovoked attack, Sunny decides with cold certainty that the commander is now at the top. As night begins to fall, the commander finally orders the entire caravan to halt and set up camp immediately. The company quickly settles down for the night, building campfires and seeking rest after the long and grueling march. Moments later, the slaves are tossed their meager rations, barely enough to sustain them through the frigid, bitter night. Sunny alone understands the horrifying truth. This single act is about to unleash an unimaginable catastrophe upon them all. As the oblivious fools celebrate, Sunny melts into the shadows, desperately calculating how to survive this new, terrifying variable. But his cursed fate has also granted him a secret weapon, a unique power that just might save his life. He wastes no time inspecting his new attributes, desperately searching for any advantage that will keep him alive. The revelation leaves Sunny completely stunned, questioning what it means to be accepted by the very shadows of this world. His contemplation is cut short as a sudden commotion from the slave camp immediately draws his undivided, focused attention. Before he can even savor the moment, one slave violently smacks the forbidden fruit from another's desperate, hungry hands. An old man issues a chilling warning that devilish fruit only grows where a great deal of human blood has been spilled. He then reveals the horrifying truth that a few small bites are more than enough to instantly kill a grown man. This dire warning triggers a chilling sense of déjà vu, as Sunny realizes this desolate place feels hauntingly familiar. Just then, the horrifying vision he witnessed before his arrival flashes back into his mind with terrifying, perfect clarity. The realization hits him like a thunderbolt. He has already seen the bloody aftermath of this exact horrifying massacre. Before he can even process this terrifying fact, a giant rock monster erupts from the ground, instantly crushing a slave. Witnessing the carnage firsthand, Sunny now fully grasps the dreadful truth of the vision he had seen moments ago. Its earth-shattering attack destroys the camp, leaving every single survivor completely frozen in a state of pure, abject terror. Amidst the chaos, a warrior screams for the captain to look towards the cliffs, where a new danger is approaching. Down the cliffside, more men are seen, fleeing for their lives, their desperate cries for help echoing in the chaos. But a wave of pure terror washes over them, as the creature's glowing eyes suddenly vanish into the darkness. Before the captain can react, the monster teleports behind him, cleanly slicing his head right off his shoulders. Through the darkness, the terrified slaves see a horrifying shape approaching, but they are unable to make out its form. Without any warning, the shadow monster opens its massive jaw, revealing terrifying rows of razor-sharp, glistening teeth. It lunges forward and bites down hard on a helpless slave, devouring him whole in one sickeningly brutal motion. The monster then turns its murderous gaze towards Sunny and the terrified group of slaves huddled right beside him. Ignoring the others, the horrifying creature delivers a powerful strike against the large, heavy-set slave standing right nearby. The sheer force of the blow sends the man's heavy body crashing down directly on top of our hero, Sunny. After witnessing the monster's brutal power up close, the remaining slaves turn and scatter in a desperate, blind panic. The bloodthirsty monster immediately spots the fleeing slaves, beginning its merciless hunt to slaughter every last one of them. Sunny, however, is completely trapped beneath the crushing weight of the heavy body that had fallen directly on him. With a final, desperate surge of adrenaline, he shoves the heavy corpse aside and finally struggles to get free. He watches them scatter, finding a small relief that the monster is now focused on chasing the other fleeing slaves. The blonde slave desperately urges Sunny to run, but to his shock, Sunny defiantly refuses to move an inch. Sunny's bizarre refusal to flee the slaughter sends the cowardly blonde slave into a state of absolute sputtering fury. Sunny was certain the large slave was dead, but then he witnesses something that completely defies all logic and reason. The man's corpse suddenly begins to gruesomely mutate, its flesh twisting and transforming into a new, terrifying monster. Sunny is paralyzed with shock, forced to watch the abomination forming just a few short feet away from him. He recognizes this horrifying transformation as a mutation, but something about this specific process feels completely, dreadfully wrong. His fated attribute is a curse, drawing impossible events, both good and horribly bad, directly to his presence. Realizing their impending doom, Sunny screams that they must kill the monster before its horrifying transformation is fully complete. He quickly formulates a desperate plan: use their own chains to wrap around the creature's neck and choke it out. With zero hesitation, Sunny puts his desperate and extremely dangerous plan into immediate, decisive, and irreversible action. A system message immediately confirms their unbelievable victory. They have slain a dormant beast, the Mountain King's larva. All Sunny wants is a single moment of rest to catch his breath before the next wave of chaos erupts. But his brief moment of relief is instantly shattered by a new and far more horrifying realization about their situation. They watch in horror as all the other dead slaves begin to mutate, their bodies transforming into more larvae. Staring at the army of monsters now rising from the dead, Sunny understands they have truly descended into a living hell. Before he can even react, another fully formed tyrant leaps high into the air, launching itself directly at Sunny. He was prepared to die, knowing this final stand against the monster was nothing but a suicidal last resort. But just as the beast lunged for the kill, a mysterious knight exploded from the shadows like a blur. With one impossibly fast strike, the knight's blade severs the tyrant's arm before slicing deep into its throat. Stunned by the rescue, Sunny's eyes widen in shock as he realizes he knows his mysterious, god-like savior. This was the exact same knight who had offered him a single precious sip of water just hours ago. Sunny could only watch in absolute awe, completely mesmerized by the man's impossibly fluid and deadly fighting style. He was left completely bewildered, desperate to understand the strange knight's true motive for helping a worthless slave. Without a word of explanation, the knight callously tosses a small metallic object directly at the captive Sunny. As Sunny catches it, he instantly understands that this is the very key he needs to unlock his shackles. The warrior gives him one cold command: save yourself, before vanishing back into the heart of the chaos. A deep sense of distrust settles in his gut. Kindness for no reason is often the deadliest poison of all. Seeing his chance, the desperate blonde-haired slave immediately begs Sunny to release him from his own heavy chains. Sunny finds the man's pathetic cowardice disgusting, but he knows freeing him is a zero-cost tactical advantage. He calculates that having more allies would be a huge advantage because there is always strength in greater numbers. Just as he frees the first man, another slave rushes over, desperately pleading to have his chains unlocked too. After being trapped in this frozen hell for so long, the older man weeps, thinking the gods have smiled. Ignoring the man's cowardice, the older slave calmly insists that he has very important advice for his friend. The blonde slave is in disbelief, unable to process why Sunny wants to move towards the rampaging beast. From a safe distance, they watch as the monstrous creature shows absolutely no signs of slowing its brutal assault. Sunny keeps his eyes laser-focused on the tyrant, meticulously analyzing every move while searching for its fatal weakness. Meanwhile, the tyrant continues to brutally devour its terrified victims with an absolutely overwhelming and terrifying force. Undeterred by its gaze, the valiant knight swings his sword with all his remaining might, landing a powerful strike. But the devastating attack barely even scratches the tyrant, causing the knight to grind his teeth in utter frustration. The monster retaliates with immense force, sending the knight flying backwards to crash hard onto the frozen ground. Seeing this, the blonde-haired slave knows their hero is holding on, but cannot possibly keep fighting for much longer. Sunny knows he must quickly formulate a brilliant plan to turn this impossible situation back to their advantage. His eyes suddenly dart towards a nearby supply cart, a flicker of inspiration, igniting a desperate, brilliant new strategy. He shouts towards the other survivors, asking the father and son if they truly want to survive this nightmare. The blonde-haired slave hesitates, but ultimately follows, still completely unsure of what insane plan Sunny has just concocted.